A brand new unknown disease is spreading among people, causing those infected to slowly turn into animals. First, they lose their human appearance. Then they lose their human voice. Finally, they lose their human consciousness and completely become part of nature as animals. A father and son were on their way to the shelter to visit the mother when they got stuck in traffic. They heard the sounds of a struggle coming from a transport vehicle also heading to the shelter. A patient who had already started mutating escaped from the vehicle. With greater strength post-mutation, the patient overpowered two caretakers and fled the scene. Emil witnessed the entire event. He saw the patient's claw-like feet and one arm turned into a wing, and he clearly remembered his appearance. The father and son arrived at the shelter, where they saw many patients gradually mutating due to the disease. While waiting, they noticed a child who had turned into a lizard ant hybrid sitting nearby. The shelter director informed them that the treatment seemed effective and they were confident they could stabilize Lana's condition. Due to the increasing number of patients, they needed to free up more rooms. So, in May, all current patients would be transferred to a new reception center in the south. Francois decided to move to the south as well, to be closer to his wife. Every patient in the shelter had their own room. To awaken their humanity, doctors covered the walls with family photos, but the claw marks on the walls showed that it wasn't very effective. Francois gently spoke to his wife, hugging her as if nothing had changed. However, Emil stood outside, unwilling to come closer ever since his mother lost her mind and attacked him. He believed Lana was no longer his mother, but with his father's encouragement, he mustered the courage to go in. Lana saw him but didn't speak, seemingly forgetting her son. Shortly after, to take care of his wife, Francois moved with Emil to the nearest town to the shelter. The town, away from the city's hustle and bustle, was surrounded by a large forest, and Emil transferred to the local high school. To prevent his classmates from knowing his mother was a mutant, he lied that she had passed away. A few days later, Francois received a call from the shelter. The transport vehicle for mutants had an accident and fell into a lake, and his wife Lana was in it. Francois rushed to the accident site immediately, relieved that Lana was not on the death list, but the surviving mutants had all fled into the nearby forest. That night, Francois hung his and his son's clothes on the trees behind their house, hoping Lana could find them by scent. However, Emil was uncooperative, believing his mother, now a bear, had lost her humanity. The next day during gym class, Emil was assigned to a tug-of-war team. For some reason, the usually weak Emil suddenly gained strength, single-handedly resisting the pull of 4 opponents. Luckily, his classmates didn't notice anything unusual, but he could feel changes in his body. He rushed home before school ended, rummaged through his things, and used tweezers to pull out a claw from under his fingernail. Panicked, he stripped off his clothes and examined his body in the mirror. Seeing his protruding spine, he realized he was also infected. He too would turn into a despised monster like his mother. Desperate, Emil curled up in the bathtub, crying, with only his dog for comfort. Meanwhile, Francois was at the supermarket buying supplies, planning to search for Lana in the forest over the weekend. There, he encountered a policewoman in charge of capturing mutants. Suddenly, a scream echoed through the supermarket. Someone had spotted a monster. Francois, thinking it was Lana, immediately started searching anxiously. However, the monster turned out to be an octopus person stealing seafood. As the police chased the octopus creature, Francois discovered a pangolin hiding under a cabinet. Its timid appearance stirred Francois's compassion, so he kept this discovery from the police. Back home, he told his son to join him in the forest the next morning to search for Lana and to get a good night's sleep for energy. But Emil said he had a classmates' party to attend that evening. At the party, Emil accidentally drank too much, and when a classmate handed him a hangover remedy, he instinctively licked it like an animal. The alcohol made Emil feel awful, and a big burp brought back memories of forest animals. The jungle seemed to be calling Emil, irresistibly drawing him in. He woke up by the lake at dawn, unable to remember the night's events. He felt sore all over and had a strange taste of blood in his mouth. He staggered home, where his father had been waiting on the couch all night. Emil quickly locked himself in the bathroom, feeling something stuck in his throat. He pulled out a feather, wondering if he had eaten a bird last night. His father urged him to hurry up so they could enter the forest to find Lana. After driving into the restricted area, they walked into the dense forest. On the way, Emile asked his father how he felt about mutants and if he had ever hated his mutated mother. Emile wanted to know if his father would hate him if he mutated. Francois said he never hated mutants. To him, Lana was still Lana, just with a different appearance. He even kissed his wife after her mutation. Emile then asked if his father blamed him for reporting his mother, leading to her being taken to the shelter. His father's attitude reassured Emile, but they searched from morning till night without finding Lana. As it got dark, Francois became anxious and drove around the forest, calling Lana's name. Emile, influenced by his father, also started calling out the window. Mama! Exhausted, they fell asleep in the car, but their dog suddenly jumped out and ran into the forest. Seemingly spotting Lana, Emile didn't wake his father and followed alone. He found the dog had only found a piece of bread. Hearing noises above, Emile looked up to see a small lizard person in the tree. Suddenly, a bird person appeared and tackled Emile, who shielded his head with his arms. The bird person clawed his arm, causing Emile to reveal his face, which the bird person recognized. Francois arrived, hearing the commotion, and drove the bird person away with a stick, then escaped the forest with Emile. But Emile couldn't stop looking back. Back home, Emile's changes became more pronounced. With animal-like hearing, even the faint squeaks of a mouse became unbearably loud. Everyone around him was bewildered, and he lost his human balance. Unable to ride a bike, rather than socializing, Emile preferred playing alone in the forest. Catching fish with his hands in the pond brought him joy. He remembered the bird person and brought the fish to where he was attacked before. He saw the bird person practicing flying on the hill but failing repeatedly. Time and again, the birdman's tumbling left him covered in bruises. Emile placed 2 fish on the ground. The birdman looked hungry and grabbed a fish. Eating it quickly, Emile took the opportunity to ask the birdman his name and if he had seen his mother in the forest. The birdman said his name was Fix and that the mutants in this forest were solitary. He hadn't seen Emile's mother. At that moment, the small lizard person sneaked away with the other fish, indicating he had been coexisting peacefully with Fix for a while. Seeing the scattered feathers and blood, Emile warned Fix that continuing to practice like this could be fatal. This remark angered Fix, who shouted that he was a bird, and if a bird couldn't fly, he might as well be dead. Emile said he knew a better place for practicing flying. He then led Fix to the lake, where a fallen tree trunk on the water's surface could serve as a jumping board, to ensure the branches in the water wouldn't hurt Fix. Emile jumped in and cleared all obstacles. Seeing Emile help him so much, Fix finally accepted his goodwill. On the way home, Emile realized he could no longer ride a bike. Knowing he didn't need it anymore after mutating, he threw it away. From then on, he entered the forest daily, accompanying Fix in his flying practice. Though they failed repeatedly, Fix felt he was on the verge of success. The two became close friends, and Fix confided in Emile. He revealed that at the shelter, doctors had performed corrective surgery on his nose to prevent his mutation, causing a wound that would never heal. No wonder Fix harbored such hostility towards humans. Emile admitted he feared becoming a wolf. Fix joked that from his fur, he seemed more likely to become a poodle. Emile laughed, lifting the gloom that had weighed on him for days. Meanwhile, Francois was working in the restaurant. After taking out the trash, he returned to find the fridge open. As he put the scattered items back, he heard heavy breathing behind him. Turning around, he saw the coat rack shaking and a shadow fleeing the scene. Francois believed it was his wife Lana and followed her into the woods. Deep in the forest, he found Lana waiting for him. By now, Lana had fully transformed into a bear, her massive size making Francois instinctively step back. This fearful reaction caused Lana to change her mind and disappear into the mist. Francois returned and unexpectedly found Emile's discarded bike on the way. He brought the bike home and, after checking it, found it wasn't broken. Why had Emile discarded his beloved bike? While washing his hands, he discovered several animal claws in the drain. Connecting the dots, he realized his son might also be infected with the mutation virus. When Emile returned, Francois, maintaining his composure, showed him the claws and asked about them. After Emile denied any knowledge, Francois brought out the bike and asked him to ride it in front of him. Emile knew his father had discovered his illness. Fearing being taken to the shelter, he tried to run, but his father caught up and just hugged him tightly. To prevent Emile from being sent to the shelter, Francois decided to help him hide his condition. He instructed Emile to trim his growing claws daily. Since his hearing had become more acute with the mutation, Francois gave Emile earplugs to wear. Lastly, Francois gave him hair remover to get rid of the animal fur growing on his body. Emile only had to hold out for 2 more weeks until school was out for summer vacation, so he kept attending school every day. After school, he would go to find Fix. However, by now, Fix had completely lost the ability to speak human language, but his bird abilities had become stronger. Fix climbed a tall tree and, despite Emile's protests, bravely leaped into the air. Fix finally learned to fly. Watching Fix soar freely, Emile was thrilled, but he forgot about his job at the restaurant. Tonight was the annual town festival. Francois was busy working at the restaurant and couldn't leave. During this time, he called Emile dozens of times, but no one answered. This made Francois worry that something had happened to his son. When he finally saw Emile arrive at the restaurant, Francois angrily grabbed his hand and inspected it. Seeing the untrimmed claws had grown back, Francois was furious. He found a pair of clippers and wanted to trim Emile's claws on the spot, but Emile resisted, and in the struggle, he lost control and bit his father's shoulder. Francois pressed the clippers against Emile's neck, forcing him to calm down. Once calm, he tried to trim Emile's nails again, but this time, he couldn't bring himself to do it. After leaving his father, Emile met Julia. Julia was one of the few friends at school who understood him. Seeing Emile looking down, Julia didn't ask why. Instead, she took him away from the noisy festival. In the cornfield, they naturally drew closer. When she felt Emile's mutated spine, Julia wasn't surprised. She had long suspected that Emile was a mutant. However, they didn't realize that someone else had seen Emile's mutated spine, and this person hated mutants the most. When they returned to the festival, he used a high-frequency sound toy to agitate Emile while Julia was away. Humans couldn't hear the high-frequency sound, but it was unbearable for animals. Emile was tormented by the sound, and in his anger, he scratched a classmate's face and then ran away. The police quickly arrived after receiving a report. Because Emile had attacked a human, many hunters with shotguns started pursuing him. Despite the cover of the cornfield, the hunters used stilts to see his position clearly. Just as a hunter aimed to shoot Emile, Fix appeared overhead and knocked him down, allowing Emile to escape into the forest. Fix tried to guide him from above but was shot by a hunter. With a heart-rending cry, Fix fell heavily to the ground. When Emile found him, Fix was barely alive. Emile held him, calling his name. Seeing Emile, Fix smiled, but soon his eyes lost their light. Before Emile could mourn, he heard the hunters approaching and had to leave Fix behind. Running deeper into the woods, under the dense foliage, he easily evaded the hunters. In the following days, he hid in the forest, eating wild fruits when hungry and drinking water from streams. As his mutation progressed, he could see in the dark like an owl and easily climb trees. From high up, he would call out to his kind in the distance. It seemed he was becoming a tree-climbing canine. During the day, he found a large footprint of a mutant by the creek. It might have been left by his mother, so he followed the direction of the footprints, and when it started raining, he hid in a cave. He unknowingly fell asleep, and when he woke up, the rain had stopped. Suddenly, heavy footsteps echoed at the cave entrance. Looking out, he saw a massive bare face. Through its gentle eyes, Emile recognized his mother. She had followed his scent to find him. Emile couldn't resist getting close to his mother, but Lana nudged him away. She knew that if Emile stayed with her, she might eventually harm him. Lana turned and left decisively. Watching her disappear into the forest, Emile ran after her. In the forest, he saw many different mutants. Looking up, he saw the little lizard person who had moved here after Fix died. At that moment, tear gas canisters were thrown in. The animals scattered in all directions. The hunters had found them. They activated high-frequency sound waves, disabling the mutant animals. Surrounded on all sides, Emile had nowhere to escape. Fortunately, wearing human clothes, the hunters mistook him for a lost boy and took him to the police station. The little lizard person camouflaged himself as a tree trunk to avoid capture. Francois came to the police station to take his son home. Initially, no one suspected Emile, but during the final signing, he gave himself away. He had completely forgotten how to write. When the officer tried to give him a new sheet of paper, Emile almost attacked him. Realizing Emile was a mutant, the officer reached for his gun but was knocked out by Francois. Francois stamped the document and took Emile out of the police station. He needed to get his son away before the police realized what had happened. Father and son chatted happily on the way. to Francois. Emile was still his son. Even if he had turned into a beast, Emile could no longer eat his favorite chips. All his behavior was no longer human, and the police were closing in. Emile felt he was about to be taken away and asked his father to visit him at the shelter. Francois sped up and then stuffed Emile's favorite chips into his mouth. He then talked about the running speed of animals, judging from Emile's behavior, that he might turn into a fox or a lynx.
T'estimes à combien la vitesse de pointe d'un renard ou d'un loup?
Mais je sais pas.
C'est 50 km/h. 60 même, dans certains cas.
The car sped into the forest's restricted area and then stopped. Francois opened the car door.